we're going to look at this issue. I'm sure everyone in the room is well aware that the demographic trend in Japan is going to have a major impact on all of our companies. When we look at the government statistics, we know that between the ages of 15 and 24, the number of young people has halved over the last 17 or so years. Halved. And it's not growing. It's just going to keep going down. So that means that the demand is going to go up, but the supply is going down. So there's going to be a big competition amongst ourselves as employers to have good staff. It was probably, about 5 years ago, the first time I heard this word, Dai Ni Shin Sotsu. I never heard of such a word before, because such a thing didn't exist. You enter the company after graduation, you stay with the company, and then you retire. But these young people, probably 3 or 4 years into their first job, quitting, leaving, and going to another company. So for the last 3 or 4 years, we have all invested a lot of training and development into these young people. So we're becoming a type of training academy for our competitors, because they're going to leave us and probably go to our competitor. So this whole issue around having engaged employees, keeping them, is only going to become more and more difficult. And I know I'm in the business of hiring staff myself. In the last couple of years, I have noticed a trend where it's getting harder and harder and harder to find people. So this is something we're all going to face. Now, if you want to be a training ground for your competitors, keep doing what you're doing now. And we will thank you, because after you've trained them, we're going to hire them. If you don't want to be a training ground for your competitors, then maybe some of the ideas that we're going to go through today may be helpful. And can you imagine how happy a staff member would be who'd fall into this category? That I was so involved in my tasks at work. I was just completely absorbed by those tasks. And wow, it's time to go home. You were so busy, you were so engaged, you were so involved, you were so happy. The time just flew by. I think our Japanese kotobas are about time flying like an arrow, right? It's a bit like that. The day, gone. But you didn't feel it. The day was slow because you were so happy, you were so engaged. We say in English, I got lost in my job. I was so involved with it. The day just flew by. That is the type of engaged employee we'd all like to have. And this is what we'd like our employees to do when they represent the company and they meet other people. They're very inspired. They're very enthusiastic. They're very confident. And they're very empowered. So the trick, though, is how do we get staff to feel inspired, empowered, enthusiastic, confident? Dale Carnegie has been around for a long time. And you probably all know this book. This is the English version, original release, How to Win Friends and Influence People, and then an updated version a couple of years ago, How to Win Friends and Influence People in the digital age. And you probably know the Japanese version. Michiba Hirakeru is a very famous book, also Hitobukasu, a very famous book, and then Hitobukasu 2 came out, no longer a Japanese version as well. These works by Dale Carnegie deal with the people side of business. How to be good with people. how to get people enthusiastic and inspired. So we've been doing this for a very long time. And we've been very successful. Currently, of the Fortune 500 companies in America, 90% of those companies use our training. And in that Fortune 500, there are about 26, last time I looked, around about 26 Japanese companies in the American Fortune 500. And of those, half of those Japanese companies are our clients here in Japan. So it's very well accepted. We're operating across 91 countries around the world. What that means is everything we do, we're testing globally. Every country, and we teach in more than 30 languages. So if it's not working, we change it. We get new ideas, we have improvements. Kaizen has now become an English word, actually. Everyone in the West knows the word Kaizen. Well, we've been doing Kaizen for a very long time. 103 years altogether. And in Japan, 52 years. Now, when I tell many audiences, oh, we've been in Japan for 52 years. We started just before the Tokyo Olympics, the first Olympics in '64. We started in 1963. A lot of people are surprised. I had no idea your training company was going in Japan that long. But that is the case. So we have a very long history, very successful history in Japan too. Do you know this gentleman, Warren Buffett? Do most people know who Warren Buffett is? I think Warren Buffett is probably the most successful businessman, investor in history. You know, incredible. And he is such a huge fan of Dale Carnegie. This is a shot from CBS News interview with Warren Buffett in his office in Omaha, Nebraska. And on that wall there is his framed certificate of graduation from his Dale Carnegie course that he took when he was a young man. And everyone likes to get a positive feedback from your clients, and everyone likes to have good testimonials. He has given us a great testimonial. He does a lot of TV interviews. Just about every major interview I've seen with Warren Buffett, he always says the same thing. When I was young, I was very scared of speaking in public, and I wasn't good with people. I took the Dale Carnegie course, changed my life. And so he often refers to Dale Carnegie as something that changed his life. And it's changed the lives of 9 million people, actually, around the world who have done that course that he did. And so in Japan, we're at about 100,000. Some of the Japanese names you might know. Ohtani-san used to be the chairman of Coca-Cola and recently became the president of Shiseido. Murakami-san, ex-chairman of Google, he writes a lot about the things he's learned from Dale Carnegie. He's very influenced by Dale Carnegie. Ohtani-san actually did the Dale Carnegie course in America when he was studying there. And also speaking at this event, late today, is Mr. Atarashi, who was previous president of Johnson & Johnson, also a big fan of Dale Carnegie. So there are many fans in Japan of successful business people. And they all say the same thing. I took what Dale Carnegie was giving us as ideas and I applied them in my career. It worked for me and I became very successful as a direct result of making that change. So we know it works. And I asked our New York headquarters, I said, look, we're always doing these surveys, after the training. People score our training, how was it? I said, okay, let's take 5 years. 10's a bit long, 1 or 2's a bit short. Let's make it 5 years. That's a substantial period of time. Put all of the results together, everything, from a simple 2-hour module to a very complicated, customized program, the lot. Put it in a big bag, shake it up. Tell me what's the average satisfaction rate over 5 years. And this is the number that came back, 97.7% across everything we do. That's Japanese language, and 95% of what we teach is in Japanese, and also includes English as well. So that tells you that there's a few ideas working here. So let's bring these up now. For today, I'm going to look at thinking about the manager's impact on engagement, our leader's impact, and how we can apply that additional effort from employees, and then how to have a people-centered leadership as a program, and then how to personalise praise and recognition. Now, this is a very shocking finding. We did a major global survey of engagement, which I'll talk about in depth in a moment, including Japan. And in that survey, these results came back. It said that amongst those employees who said, I am very satisfied with my boss, only 21 out of 43, that's basically 50%, said, I'm engaged. So we're asking different questions, you know. So when we line up the satisfaction of the boss question with the engagement question and do an overlay, we found that even those who said they are very satisfied, only half said they felt engaged. That's a shocking number. I'm sure, like me, I would expect the very satisfied staff to also be engaged. To me, that would be common sense. But when we did that research, we found there wasn't necessarily a direct connection in every case. So where, as leaders, we might think, oh, we have very satisfied team members, they like me as the boss, therefore they're engaged. Well, actually only half of them were. And those who were, you know, somewhat satisfied, type of somewhat satisfied with the boss, not unhappy, but, you know, sort of satisfied. Well, again, only 6 out of 32 of those who said they were somewhat satisfied actually were engaged. So, interesting that those numbers tell us that we can't just be satisfied with what looks like happiness with the situation. There's probably something deeper there than we expect. So surface satisfaction is not an indicator of engagement. I was shocked when I saw those numbers personally. I thought, oh, this is much harder than I thought it was going to be, type of thing. So you can define engagement in many ways, and we've come up with a fairly simple way of defining it. So it means that the mind, the intellect, and the heart, the passion, are both committed. So the person's mind and their heart are both committed to the organisation to deliver high performance. Okay? So we're getting both. Now, naturally, we want our team to have skills and knowledge. But that's no help to us if their attitude isn't good, if they're not a good team player. If they're very smart, very knowledgeable, but they're a troublemaker inside the company, criticising everybody, complaining all the time about their colleagues who aren't as smart, they create a real problem in your organisation. And these are the tricky people to deal with. They're good, but they're a problem. Right? So just being smart and having a lot of knowledge is good, but it's not enough. We also need to have a positive attitude. But the other way, a person who's a really positive attitude, but totally useless at their work is no help either. You know? So sort of, you know, happy but useless staff member is not good either. So we'd like them to be smart and skillful and have a really positive attitude. We need both. And the way to get both is we get this engagement. So they're using both their brain and their heart to get high performance. Now when we get engagement like this, then we start to get the combination of competence as a professional with passion, enthusiasm for their work, which leads to what we call in English discretionary effort. What that means is I'm expected to do this much in my job, but I'm prepared to do more than that. I'm prepared to go that extra, do that extra effort than probably what people expect. We call that discretionary effort. That is a very critical function of success in companies. The more people who are putting in that extra, the more successful our companies will be compared to our competition. where their team is not doing that. Their team is turning up, they work, they go home. Our team turns up, works very hard, does extra, goes home. We will win in the long term over that other team. Because out of that discretionary effort is where we're going to find innovation. If you don't care what's happening in your company or your section, why would you innovate? Why would you look for some way to make things better or to improve it? You wouldn't worry about it. Right? You just don't care. People who care are going to be these people. They've got that capacity to try harder, put in something extra, because they've got the combination of a good attitude and skills together to have that engaged approach to their work. This is the type of person we want, and this is the type of person we definitely want to keep in the company. Now, when we did this research, we found that some people were not engaged, they were actually disengaged, right? And negative people. And they would spread that negativity throughout the company. They would not contribute, they would hold back progress, arguing with people, not doing things when they're supposed to be ready, basically holding the whole team back, because they don't care. And they talk negatively about the leaders, they talk negatively about the company, right? They're always whinging, whining to everyone about how bad this company is. They're not happy, and they're definitely not engaged. Then we have another group. They're not totally negative, but they're not totally positive. They're engaged to some extent, partially engaged. They come in at 9, they leave at 6, that's it. They do their job, get their pay, go home. That's all. Please tell me what to do, boss. Don't ask me to think. Right? Again, no innovation coming out of this thing. So, do it, get paid, go home. Well, okay. Definitely we're going to have people like that. Better than having the ones who are disengaged, but still not great. Then we've got those who are engaged. Well, they don't leave the company. They don't join the Dainishi Sotsu group. They stay because they see something in their company that keeps them very interested. They produce. They actually get outcomes for the company. We've invested a lot in those people. They pay us back through their productivity. And they are committed to having good quality outcomes, good quality output from their work. So, very important group. Now, when we do the research, I'm just going to contrast US findings with the global findings. That's the first cut. Then we'll look at Japan in a moment. In the US, we found that there were 26% of people surveyed said they were basically disengaged. And globally, it was 20%. Those who are somewhat engaged, partially engaged, 45 and 46, about the same. And those who are highly engaged, the US is 29, globally it was 34. Right. So even, 29, 34, it's not such a big number of people who are really engaged, actually, about 1 in 3. Right. Now, when we take this to Japan, we did a number of surveys. The one on the left is that American survey I just mentioned, the 29, 45, 26 numbers there. The next one is we took that same survey, translated it into Japanese, and surveyed 1,000 Japanese people. We used a company called Kata, JMRN, to do the research for us. And we only got 2% on our number, said they were engaged, fully engaged. Now Gallup in America did a very similar engagement study. They came up with 29% in America who are engaged, which is very similar to our number. For Dale Carnegie's survey in America, it was also 29%. But Gallup's Japan survey, same survey in Japan, they only showed 7%. So their 7% is higher than our 2%. But it doesn't matter much because whether it's 2% or it's 7%, it's pretty small. It's a pretty small number all the way around. And in the Gallup poll, they found that in Japan, there were 68% of people who were partially engaged. We only found 22. They found 25% disengaged. We found 77. So we looked at another survey by Towers Watson. They're asking slightly different questions, but they had highly engaged and disengaged. Globally, they had 35% were highly engaged, which is roughly about where the Gallup numbers were. In Japan, though, only 15%, compared to our number of 2. And disengaged, their number was 50% against our number of 77. So again, another company taking a slightly different approach on the survey. But what it says, though, is that relatively in Japan, people, when they answer these surveys, are not highly engaged. So when we do a comparison of our own survey globally, we do Asia Pacific region, we do Japan, you see that for us in Japan in our survey, compared to the rest of Asia and compared to globally, Japan is an outlier in terms of the levels of engagement. So there seems to be some fairly big issues at play here. Now, in this survey, we also looked at, okay, how do people become engaged? What are some things that would make those scores improve, would have people more engaged? And we found that there were 3 drivers to do that. And these are rather common sense when you think about it. The most important one was satisfaction with your immediate manager. That's a fairly obvious thing, isn't it? If you're not happy with your boss, your supervisor, then the chances are you're not going to be highly engaged. Right? So that's a fairly critical relationship. Second one's interesting. This is belief in senior leadership and the direction they're taking the company. So as someone who's working for the company, they're looking at the general strategy for the company in the marketplace, compared to what's happening with the competitors, and they're thinking about, have top management actually got this right? They're thinking about, are we properly set up for success? Are we getting the right people in the company? Are we taking care of people in the company properly? Right? So they're looking at that as a very important factor in how engaged they feel. And then lastly, pride in the organisation. You know, people who don't have much pride in the organisation are not engaged. Right? Basically, it's fairly obvious, isn't it? So having pride in the organisation is also a driver to help people become more engaged. Now, it's interesting, as leaders, that manager group, how often as leaders do they talk up the senior leadership to their team? How often do they instill in their team confidence that the senior leadership know what they're doing? Often in big companies, everyone's complaining about the senior leadership, right, to each other. And sometimes even the middle management does the same thing. Oh, those guys up there in the top suite, the top floor of the building, they don't know the marketplace. We keep getting these requests for higher outcomes or faster outcomes, and that's totally crazy because that's not reality. And so you get this negative feedback to the team from the middle management about senior leaders, or about pride in the organisation. Other middle management talking up the organisation, stressing to their team, we work for a great company, the company represents these values, these are great values, we're helping society, we're doing great things for our clients, etc. Often middle management are not talking about these things either because they don't think it's important, or it's type of expected, tarimai, or they don't believe it themselves maybe. So there could be a big communication gap in our companies from this management group, because they have a key role. They're the sort of, senior management and the team, they're the middle group there. They control a lot of things. It's also very interesting that middle management too are not good usually at communicating to the people below what they hear from the people above. So they are a type of sponge, They get all the information from senior management, what's going on in the company, and then they keep it. And they don't tell the people below what's going on. So often there are great things going on in the company, but these managers are not passing that on. So the people at the bottom don't have a lot of pride in the organisation when they should have, if the communication was done properly. And often they don't have belief in senior leadership because they don't really understand why these changes are being brought in, or why we're doing this strategy, or why this culture they want to create is important. So that middle manager area, that supervisor level, is a very, very critical area for getting employees behind the company. We shouldn't miss that point. Now this was a polling survey we did, and we had 7 questions there. I love question number 7. You can tell this is an American-based survey, right? I'm an Australian, we probably would never even think of putting that in there. But this is a survey, it's a global survey created in America. Anyway, this is very interesting. When we did the survey in Japan, it reflected exactly what the global survey had shown were the 3 most important things. And there you've got, the Chokuzoku no Joshi ni taisuru manzoku do was the largest percentage in Japan too. For people who took the survey, we did this live. We were doing an engagement workshop, and with your smartphones today, you could go online and take a survey right there in the room and record a result, which we did. And this is what came up. So I just captured those results just to show you that when we do this live with a Japanese audience, that reflects what we saw globally. And then, of course, number 2, Soshiki ni taisuru kori was very important. And then, the Keie Kanbu ni taisuru no shinrei, also very important. Okay, there's 3. Those 3 areas stood out, and it shows in Japan too that for engagement, these things are also important. So I think that's a good merging of the ideas around the world that these things are important. So it's good to know these things, right? It's good to know these things. Now we asked, this is a mixed group now. We have on the left-hand side the same Japanese group you just saw. I just transferred those across. Now we have the questions in English. Then we have a mixed foreigner and Japanese group. Because even though we're doing like today, even though we're doing it in Japan, when we do the workshop in English, we often get Japanese members come and join that session. So it wasn't all foreigners, and it wasn't all Japanese. It was maybe 2/3 foreigners, 1/3 Japanese, mixed group. And again, even in that mixed group, you see the same things come up. The largest group, number 2, is satisfaction and immediate manager. That matches with the Japanese group. Not as a bigger percentage, only 31 compared to 50, but still the major one. And the second one here is pride in the organisation, and then belief in senior leadership. So very, very similar. The difference was, though, number 5, for the foreigner group, they were more interested in opportunities for going up in their career than the Japanese group. Right? That's the only difference that is really striking in their group. But again, this shows us that those 3 drivers are very, very common. This is another survey we did. What action do you think has the most impact on employee engagement? And this is from the leader's point of view. What things that you're going to do are going to create a lot of engagement in your team? And again, very interesting here. I've got now the Japanese group on the left and a mixed group of Japanese and foreigners on the right. But we see here, number 6, showing appreciation and giving recognition. Isn't that interesting? That was on both sides the most important idea that leaders had about getting engagement. The second one, on the Japanese side at least anyway, was providing clear direction. Okay? And then the third one on the Japanese side was collaborating on decisions. So it's not all top down. Okay? Then in the mixed group, slightly different. They had number 2 and number 4, the encouraging open communication and promoting work-life balance were more important to that group. But in a Japanese group, again, this showing appreciation and giving recognition was thought to be one of the critical factors to drive engagement. So, here's the question. do we do that in our companies? Are the leadership team, your middle management team, doing that for their staff? Right? Everyone's saying, yes, this is good, but are we actually doing it? That's a little bit of a different question, isn't it? Yeah, this is very interesting. If we want to improve our engagement, in some ways, it's not that hard. In that same survey, we found that those who said, my manager cares about me, okay, 1/3, 1 in 3 people said, yes, my manager cares about me. Of that group, half were engaged. Okay? Right? Of that group who said, my manager cares about me, half of them were engaged. Now, 2/3 said, no, my manager doesn't care about me. And of that group, only 17% were engaged. So if we can get the managers to work more with their team, so the team feels the manager cares more about them, then this percentage, the red percentage goes down, the blue goes up, and therefore the engagement goes up. So again, the managers have such a critical role here in terms of their communication style and how they lead. So here's the question. If I ask you all to give me the phone number of someone from your team, and I pick up my mobile phone right now, and I say, hi, it's Greg Story from Dale Carnegie Training here. I've got Mr. Yoshida with me here at a seminar we're doing. I just want to ask one question. Do you think Mr. Yoshida cares about you? What do you think? What are they going to tell me? Well, being Japanese, they'd probably say yes, because they'd be polite, right? But if they knew that it was completely anonymous and this was a survey that wasn't going to go back to Mr. Yoshida, I wonder what the score would be. So think about that yourself, right? And if you got the call, you received the call, and they ask you about your boss, what would you answer? Would you say, yeah, my boss cares about me? Or would you say, no. Are you in the red circle here or the blue part of the circle? So if we can move to more, yes, my manager cares about me because the manager's communication style, leadership style makes that happen, well, we can get that engagement score to go up pretty quickly. But that's going to take some training. Now, we saw it before that the praise and recognition was important to get engagement. This graph tells us that people want to be feeling that managers care. There's a whole communication piece to that. There's a whole human relations skill piece to that managers need to get, because obviously 2/3 of them are not doing a very good job. And if you think about your own companies, that's probably true, isn't it? These numbers will probably reflect your reality. But what are we doing in our companies to get that to change? What are we doing to educate and help our managers to have more awareness about these ideas and therefore do a better job in leading their teams? It's a bit of a complex chart in one way, but we looked at engagement from the point of view of emotions. And the green bar there is where people are most engaged, right? The green is highly engaged, yellow, disengaged. So what emotions are people feeling when they're engaged? I'll just read them off here. When they're inspired, enthusiastic, empowered, happy, confident, valued, enlightened, excited, empathetic, hopeful, assured, connected. Those are very strong emotions that drive feelings of engagement. The ones that kill engagement, on the other side, fearful, vulnerable, feel at risk, anxious, irritated, annoyed, that type of thing, feel manipulated, pressure, intimidated, bored, feel uncomfortable in the work environment, upset, insulted. You see that emotionally we react to how we're treated, and that directly impacts our levels of engagement. So if we are doing these things emotionally with people, they're going to be disengaged. If we do these sorts of things, emotional engagement will go up, which sounds easy. So how do we do that? Now, this is very interesting. In the survey, we found there was like a trigger point, like a trigger on a pistol. You pull a pistol and off goes the bullet. That trigger point between being disengaged and then becoming more engaged was feeling valued. Now, it doesn't matter whether it's a small company or a middle-sized company or a big company. If the person felt valued by the team, valued by their boss, valued by the organisation, they were more likely to move up this scale to become more involved in the business, to become more enthusiastic, that discretionary effort that I mentioned before, and also to have a stronger sense of accountability and ownership and commitment to get a return on investment, right? Get an outcome. Now in Japan, it's a bit tough because of the group culture in Japan where we all take responsibility for the results, but actually, therefore, no one's responsible. It's a beautiful system. We're all responsible, but none of us are responsible, right? It's a bit vague about responsibility, but I was amazed that Hitachi, right? Hitachi is going to bring in that Seika Shugi performance evaluation. And, you know, the top people are going to get the biggest bonuses, and the bottom people are going to get the smallest bonuses. That's for a company like Hitachi, that's amazing. And Toyota too. They're doing something similar. So even these very big, well-established, old-style, traditional Japanese companies are starting to think about getting return on investment from their teams and not being satisfied with people not taking accountability, not taking responsibility, not using that discretionary effort for innovation, which is interesting. So if you feel valued, then you feel inspired. And we saw before that that emotion of being inspired is a very important emotion for driving engagement. So when you feel valued, you feel, yeah, I want to do something, I want to try something, I want to, you know, make a difference around here. Also, enthusiastic. So enthusiasm spreads, doesn't it? People come into your team just on one day, really enthusiastic, really fired up. They start to generate energy for the other people in the team. Have you noticed that? Same with the opposite. Somebody's really down, really depressed and really unhappy. They sort of come into the office, suddenly they kill the mood. They're like a mood killer, not the mood maker. Right? So the mood maker is bound to be enthusiastic and bring the whole team up with them. And they only do that when they feel personally valued by the organisation, the team, and their boss. Right? And empowered is a critical thing because we're asking people to innovate. We're asking people to be accountable. That means you're taking on responsibility. Japan is a tough environment for innovation. I said before, I'm from Australia. So in Australia, we don't punish failure like you do in Japan. We see failure as a learning necessity. Keep doing the same thing and failing, that's a big problem, right? We're not going to put up with that. But in Japan, there's so much pressure to always be correct, not make a mistake. Very hard to innovate inside your company, very hard to take a risk. And so people tend to stay inside their comfort zone. Comfort zone is where you feel very confident about what you're doing. You know how to do it, you've done it before, don't make mistakes, don't get criticised, everything's good. But innovation does not take place inside the comfort zone. Because it's a problem. You know, if we're doing the same things in exactly the same way, well, we get exactly the same result. Now, I don't know any company that's satisfied with getting the same result every year. Every company I've worked in, every year the requirement goes up. Right? So we need a higher outcome. But if you're doing the same thing, same way, getting the same result, how do you get the higher output? How do you get the higher result? There's only two ways to do that, and they both involve change. The first way is you do something new that you haven't done before. New machinery, new process, new capability, new people, new expertise, new skill, or something. The other one is you do something you used to do, but you just a bit of Kaizen there, just tweak it a little bit, change it slightly, improve it. And that's what I love about living in Japan. This country is amazing on making things better. Just incredible. So Japan, you're brilliant at this, this Kaizen thing, you're wonderful. Just making those little changes to make it better. But both of those involve change. So if you want to stay in your comfort zone, well, you don't care whether it's Kaizen or a big change. You don't care about any change. No change, thank you. We're not going to do it. We're not going to do it. We're going to keep doing what we've always done. Now, Einstein was a very clever man. I think everyone admires Einstein. Theory of relativity, very famous guy, with crazy hair, and a big moustache, right? But he said something very smart too. He said, repeating the same thing over and over and over, but expecting a different result, is a definition of insanity. So by that definition, a lot of us are crazy, because we keep doing the same things in the same way, expecting a different result. That's crazy. If we want to get a different result, we need to do something different. That means a change. That means empowerment to do something new. That means step out of your comfort zone to do something new. That means, naturally, you will make a mistake because we are not perfect at it the first time. It's new to us. It's a new skill, a new capability. So the chances of a mistake happening are very high. So if as leaders, we see the mistake and then we criticise it, we scold them, that person withdraws. They realise that's a bad idea. I won't do that again. So the innovation process stops dead, right there. So we'll never get engagement if we don't allow people to be empowered. And part of empowerment is confidence. Are the leaders making their people feel confident? Are they allowing them to take risks? To try something new that's going to make things better? Are they tolerating mistakes and looking at how they can eliminate the mistakes rather than just scolding people for the mistakes, right? So this is something we found as a construct is very critical if you're going to get engaged teams. And with that 15 to 24-year-old age bracket population going this way, right? And as a requirement for staff goes this way, the pressure to keep those people is going to be very high. So if that young group don't feel they're valued, they will become part of that Daini Shinsotsu group and they will leave your company after all that fantastic training you've given them, and they'll come to me or a competitor or someone else. So this is where we have to train our managers to understand this is how things work. So at one point I worked for the Shinsei Bank, and I was in charge of the Platinum Banking Division, which ran all of the branches in Japan. And we had a bit of a revolution there. We brought in a lot of young managers, and there was still some elderly, or elderly, I should say elderly, older managers. But I remember one of those older managers was very strict with his team. And we're trying to explain, not this concept then, this is a couple of years ago now, but same sort of idea about encouraging these young people. These were very smart young people coming out of the best universities, very bright. We had a very tough selection process. We're looking for really sharp, flexible young people. They were brilliant kids. Brilliant. But he was old style. Tough love. That's what he told me. Got to give them tough love. No, you don't. Because they're not going to feel valued and they're going to leave. And that's what happened. They would leave because they didn't want to put up with that. And when their supply is going down, they become like free agents. They become like those baseball players, in America. They change teams easily. They'll be changing teams with us easily if they don't feel valued. And people who are handing out tough love as a leader, They're going to be a constant flow of people out of that company or out of your company. So we have to educate our leaders that this is important to keep people. Your job is not to hand out tough love. Your job is to make people feel valued by communicating to them that they're important in the company, giving them empowerment to try things, step out of their comfort zone, use some of that discretionary effort for innovation, build all those things. This is another survey. As a manager, which action is the hardest to do every time? Do it consistently. This is very interesting. Japanese team and a mixed team. The Japanese team, number 3, to acknowledge and care about my employees' personal lives. Right? In Japan, there's obviously a big divide here between your personal life and your work life. Right? So they found that very difficult. The second one they found most difficult was to build trust, credibility, and respect. In the mixed team, it was number 3 and also number 6, but also number 4 came up too, also the Japanese side, as the 3 critical things. You know, give them a reason to feel confident in my leadership ability. So part of this is caring, but caring about the whole person, not just the work person. Right, so to which extent? Oh, I care about you so you can do hard work and make the company go forward. But I don't care about you as a person outside of work. Do you think that's going to be very successful? Maybe not. You know, particularly for women in Japan, often the carer for aging parents, usually the carer for the children. So there are a lot of demands on women and also increasingly on men that bosses, leaders have to be very appreciative of and understand those pressures so that we're able to acknowledge and show you care. Show that they're valued, but they're valued as a total person, not just as a robot who makes money for the company. So here's some things to think about. If we take the person as the centre, we think about how can we help that person grow and develop. That might include delegation. Often leaders don't delegate because they don't know how to delegate properly. So they say things like, well, it could be quicker if I did it myself. Therefore, they don't give the chance to the staff members to learn. They hold it. Or they don't think about what do I need to do to grow, to nurture my people? How can I get them to be better? So giving those sorts of opportunities for growth, particularly for young people, when we look at younger generation, they want development, they want to be invested in, they want to grow, they want to feel valued, they want to feel their managers care. This is how they judge it. Is my manager helping me to grow? Okay. Of course, another way to do that is through being a mentor and a coach. Okay. Being a mentor and a coach. So how much coaching time are the leaders giving to the team? And this is the point. In a busy life, as everyone in Japan faces, particularly leaders and managers, do they have time to coach people? This is the point we're all struggling with. We need to allow more time to coach them so they feel, okay, I'm being invested in, I'm being valued here. Number 3 here is then help them to build networks. This is networks within the company and without the company, right? So it's both within and without. So in business, helping them to get a broader network for their business contacts, but also inside, particularly big companies, because often we need to cooperate, and in Japanese companies where you move around as generalists within a company to have those contacts to go to the next section or start building relationships, we could often be the person who helped them with those networks, both outside the company and inside the company, because we've got them. So we need to share our network with them to help them grow. And then remove obstacles and provide resources. Now resources are things like, obviously, equipment, but it's also experience. It's also training. Okay? It's also getting things that are stopping them from going ahead. And that might be access to experience. You know, they may not be included in teams, including them in teams that are working on a particular project so they can grow. But of course, we hold them accountable to high performance. We're not looking for low-level performance here. We don't tolerate poor performance. We accept that when people step out of their comfort zone, they will make a mistake. We accept that will happen, but we deal with it. But we don't accept the same mistake happening over and over and over again. In the same way, we also don't accept poor performance. Okay, we give people a chance to grow, but we hold them accountable. We give you the freedom to grow, but we hold you accountable for your performance, that you actually do the organisation in a positive way. And then, show you care. And show you care means communication. It means consideration. It means time spent with people. It also means knowing the people. So it's up to the supervisors to find out about their team. Here's some ideas on, I'll bring all of these up. Finding out about your individuals in your team. What are their strengths? That person's strengths. What about their passion? What are they proud of? What motivates them? What are their opportunities they want? What are the challenges they're facing? As the leader, how well do we know that about that person? So, by talking with them, it might be over lunch, it might be after work, it might be while we're travelling, as we get to know them, we understand the critical things that are important for them. And knowledge of that helps us to show we care. If you don't have that knowledge, it's very hard to show that you actually care about someone. Now, when we talk about praise and recognition, this is an extremely bad technique for showing recognition. So, if you say, good job in English, you say, yeah, good job, you did a good job. That's hopeless. Why is it hopeless? Well, it's hopeless because it's too vague. They're probably doing a lot of different jobs. And within that job, there's probably many different parts. Which part was good? Which bit was excellent? Just good job. Well, you don't know what to do about that. It's nice that you've been told it was good, but it's not really believable. So here's some things to think about to make praise believable. So when we're giving praise, let's give them an example. Zukun, you did a really nice piece of work on that project. General praise. Good work on the project. In particular, the way you collected the evidence to back up the recommendation was very thorough, was very professional, and it was very convincing. So now we're getting into what was good. So if I'm Suzuki-kun, I know, oh, okay, I did these things well and I'm being recognised for it. This is believable. Now I believe what I'm being told. It's not just gomasuri, the boss trying to polish my apple for me type of thing, right? And then we give context. So we take that praise and we say, the fact that you were able to do such a good part of that project really made that project successful, and that is important to our whole division or our whole section to be successful. So now we're tying that person's contribution to the outcomes of the bigger group, be it the division, the section, or even the whole company. So now they see their piece of work in the big picture, which often is very hard to feel at in a big company. What am I doing every day that actually makes a difference? Now we're saying what you do makes a difference. And then finally, we reinforce it. We say things like, and if you keep working like that, if you keep applying yourself like that, you are going to go up in this company and be very, very successful. So I encourage you, keep doing this type of good work. So opposed to good job, which doesn't really mean much, now we can give them the praise. You did a great job on the project. In particular, I like the way you got the evidence together and the conclusion you drew in that project was very convincing. And that's helped our section, our division, our company to be very successful with that project. You made a big contribution there. Keep doing that because you're doing a good job, and that's going to take you far in your career, and it's going to help the company. Do you see how that works in terms of giving praise? So when we talk about making sure that people feel that they're valued, that we care, giving praise and appreciation is very important, and how we do it is very important. So there are some areas to think about in terms of your person-centered leadership. Get to know the people and know their totality, not just their work part. Right? Look for opportunities to have that good communication, show that they're valued, show you care, inspire them to engage with the company. And if we do that, they will stay with our company, we will train them and keep them, we will beat the competition, and we will be very successful as an organisation going forward. And I'm trying to hope that you can take some of these ideas away today, use them in your companies, and be successful. So thank you very much for your attention. And we have, I think, about 5 minutes for questions. Who has the first question? Being Japan, of course, there's never a first question. So a question I'm often asked is, how do you make those changes in the company? Well, as I said before, same thing, same way, same result. You need a change. Either something new or something slightly different. Obviously, as a training company, we provide that piece. We provide that part of the puzzle around helping leaders to develop. And in your packs today, you'll see a lot of information about what we offer, which is really quite different from other training companies because what we deliver is behaviour change. And one of the problems with training is unless there's a change of getting people out of the comfort zone, nothing much else changes. But Dale Carnegie, in a genius-like way, found the secret of how to get people out of the comfort zone so they would absorb the training and make the behaviour changes to get the new outputs. Most training doesn't work because people go back to their desk, go back to doing things exactly the same way they've always done them. So where's the training benefit? None. But fortunately, we have the mechanism, the technique to be able to do that. So that's one of the things to think about. If you're going to do training, make sure that the training works. And it's not just a simple HR division box ticking exercise. You know, you go, did we do the training? Yes. Select the box, we did it. Did the training actually lead to anything? Well, we don't care because we're in HR, our job is to tick the box. No, HR's job is to make sure that the outcomes flow from the training, to make sure the training is successful, make sure the behaviour change comes into play, to get the sorts of things we talked about today, to get the engagement, to keep and maintain the workforce that you want. So that's something to think about. Where's the next question? Let me again say, think about your leadership group, think about their control over how people feel in terms of being valued and being cared about. If that group's working well, you will never have a problem with free agent era that's coming. You will never have a problem with recruitment and retention. So, good luck with that, and I hope to see you at a Dale Carnegie program sometime in the future. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。